basketball can be a mysterious sport.
The team whose logo is in this envelope will have the first pick in the NBA draft.
Watch James. Now wanted a timeout, but too late to get it. And 5 minutes go up on the clock. Overtime here in game one.
Will Giannis win a title in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform?
It's hard for me to say that, Jay, considering how loaded the Lakers are. I don't know if you've been watching Taylor Horton Tucker over the last couple of days.
But what if those mysteries could be solved? What if those conspiracies are reality? The hoop truth is out there. Can you handle it? It's Sunday. We got 4th of July tomorrow. I'm off work. Dre, are you off work?
I am off work.
We're having long weekends. It's very nice, and we need the long weekend because it is to borrow from Real Hooper Pilltrilled, who's on Twitter. I steal their bit all the time. Slopfest 2022 is happening right now. Free agency has opened up. We are getting news on news as well as trade rumors. And yes, I know you're tuning in for a specific reason. You're in wait mode to see what's going to happen in the KD trade rumors. We'll talk about what's happened there and what we think is going to happen. We've got some rumors on that front. And honestly, we're recording at 4 p.m. Pacific time. I'm in LA on Sunday, July 3rd. This shit could break while we're recording. When we post it tomorrow morning, this could be old news by the time we post it. So let's hop in right away. Welcome back to Hoop Truthers, by the way. Thank you for opening your third eye and joining us once again. As always, Dre, at NickAndreATR on Twitter, hardest working man on Twitter. How are you doing, sir? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you, brother. Definitely glad to be back. Happy early 4th of July for everybody. Hope everybody has a good time with their families and loved ones. But we're getting into some basketball. I know it's off season. Free agency just started. Summer league is starting as well, even though we're probably not going to get into that. But, the drama's coming. The drama is coming, and we're just getting started.
Summer League has started. Check it out if you're not. We can touch on it for 1 second. Keegan Murray yesterday did great. Looks really good. To be fair, he's nearly 22 playing in the Summer League, and that's a bit old for the Summer League, so maybe he's just a man among boys. But the shot is definitely there. We'll see more about
shot and the rebounding.
Yeah, a little bit of playmaking. I still like that pick. We'll talk about it. We're not going to talk draft today. I think we might just revisit that at some point. We had a couple of weeks hiatus. I was in New York. Dre had some people in town. We couldn't record. It happens, I was on New York on the day of the draft, and instead I went to a John Mulaney show at the other side of town at MSG. It was fun. Since then, though, we've had free agency open. I've got here a little list. I think I got everybody. I looked at multiple different pages to make sure I had some overlap. Color-coded by team, so we can go by team, and I'll list them off. The way that I think we'll do it, Dre, I'll list off like 4 signings in a row, and I'll ask you if you have interest in talking about any of them or if we want to move on from a team. Okay, so let's start, and then we'll talk about the trades that happened. I guess we can talk about the trades that happened before free agency, mainly the DeJounte Murray trade. We can talk about that real quick. Also, the 76ers on draft night traded number 23 and Danny Green's expiring contract. He's not going to play this year with a torn ACL for DeAnthony Melton from the Memphis Grizzlies. Really solid pickup for the Sixers. We'll talk about them later. But the big trade that happened the day before free agency opened, the day before Kevin Durant asked for a trade, the Atlanta Hawks go all in. All in the sense that they traded all, unprotected first-round draft picks to add an impact player right now that they believe could be the last piece or close to the last piece before they're a legitimate contender. The Milwaukee Bucks did this with Drew Holiday. The Lakers did this with Anthony Davis. You do this with superstars. You do this with very good players. And they did this with DeJounte Murray, first-time All-Star last year. youngest player on an all defensive team. He's legitimate on defense. Maybe he's not a clamper, but he's legit on defense and figures to be a really good fit. Dre, I'm going to hear your thoughts on it, but first, here are the parameters of the trade. The Hawks received DeJounte Murray and Jock Landale, and the Spurs received Danilo Gallinari, who was later waived, and we'll talk about what happened there. At 2025 and 2027 unprotected first-round picks from Atlanta, Charlotte's 2023 protected first-round pick that they got in the Cam Reddish trade from New York earlier this year, and a 2026 first-round pick swap. Dre, we can do winners and losers if you want. We don't have to. That's kind of clickbaity shit. But how do you feel about this trade now that we're a few days away from it? You've had some time to think about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to give a take on who won and who lost this trade. But the one thing that I will say is that this was a really smart move for Atlanta, especially for the future. You know, DeJounte Murray, who was coming off of a most improved player season. Well, in my opinion, he should have won it. I know John Morant won it, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. But DeJounte Murray was really the focal point for that for the Spurs team. I know that another team wasn't necessarily in a position to be a playoff team, but now you're pairing this guy who is a great two-way player, you know, a great playmaker on the offensive end, can also score, and then also a terrific on-ball defensive player as well. So now you pair that alongside a guy like Trae Young. Now it allows Trae to play off the ball, and then of course you got other guys like DeAndre Hunter. And on top of that, you kept John Collins. We don't know what his future may look like with the team, but if you keep, but if you are going to start the season with John Collins on your team, that's going to be spectacular as well. The Hawks are here, honestly. I think DeJounte elevates them as possibly a top 4 team in the East, and let's just see how it turns out this year.
I like the trade as well. One real quick note: you mentioned we don't know John Collins' future. He's been mentioned in lots of trade rumors. It's pretty clear right now, especially from the lack of activity from both Shams and Woj on Twitter, is that nothing else is happening until this KD trade happens. Like, the KD trade might happen and we miss that, or it happens while we're recording, or it happens right after we post and we're late on that news. But nothing else is going to come out. So we're not going to be late on anything else because it's not happening until the KD thing. Kyrie's not getting figured out until KD trade happens. Ayton isn't getting figured out until the KD trade happens. Hell, Harden might not sign his extension until the KD trade happens. So if a Collins trade does happen, it's not going to happen until the KD trade happens. It might be even part of it for all we know. There's rumblings. We'll talk about this later in the pod. I got rumblings for you, though. If you have an elite scoring guard in the NBA, the best thing you can do is put a secondary playmaker next to them if you're trying to build a backcourt that's a defense guy as well. All right? And those guys are invaluable. Marcus Smart's, Drew Holidays of the world. I believe DeJounte Murray to be one of them. And pairing a 25-year-old version of that with Trae Young gives you a backcourt that hits you both ways. On defense, DeJounte is going to get you. You can't pick on Trae as much, even though they still will. And on offense, it's not just that Trae is the offensive guy that he always has been. DeJounte is a slasher. He gets to the rim. He gets rim pressure on teams that Trae also does, but you have another option for that. The question is, will Trae play off ball? He's had opportunities to do so. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a creator. They tried their hand at Kevin Huerter doing the same thing, Lou Williams. And Trae usually just sits off ball, not doing anything. I think he can get to that next level where he's doing it, and I hope this is the move that does it, but we don't know. Let's move into free agency then. We've got a few more trades, but they all happen a little bit later. So I'm going to start with Golden State's free agency. Let's start. People that left are Otto Porter, Gary Payton II, Juan Toscano Anderson, who was not offered a qualifying offer on his restricted free agency, and Chris Chiozza. Not massive members, but Otto Porter and Gary Payton certainly were. Nemanja Bjelica also decided to go back to Europe and play with a team there instead of signing with a team in the NBA. Good luck to him, and happy that he's back where he is from, if that's more comfortable for him. But they do re-sign Kevon Looney, who was one of the most important parts of their championship run, to a 3 years, $25.5 million contract. Honestly, probably less than what he would have gotten on the open market, but not an underpay, like a massive underpay. So I'm glad Looney got that back. And We know why they let the wings go. They have plans for their rotation, but to replace Gary Payton II, they signed Dante DiVincenzo, 2 years, $9.3 million contract. Really solid. Dre, what did you think about these signings as well as the guys that you lost? As our resident Warriors fan, of course.
I'm gonna miss my guys, man. I'm gonna miss GP too.
Yeah.
Terrific defender, man. Just a great on-ball defender. Really brought a lot of energy to the team. But considering how well he played this season, it definitely elevated his stock and his value. So I'm definitely happy to see him, get a bag in Portland and just possibly get a better opportunity there. And then of course Otto Porter Jr., Bielitsa as well. I was getting kind of scared for a minute because I'm like, man, we're losing some key rotational players.
Right.
But then I also started to think maybe this could be an opportunity for the young guys like Moses Moody, Kuminga, for these guys to really get that opportunity to be a big part of the second unit, and then of course obviously grow within the future. Obviously James Wiseman is expected to come back as well at the start of the season, so I looked at it as optimism for the young guys. But signing DiVincenzo, and I'll be real, I'm not as excited as that one fucking guy that was on Twitter Spaces.
I saw that video.
Oh my god, I'm not as excited, but Dante's definitely a big pickup, honestly. But that was wild, man. That was definitely wild. But I mean, shout out to DiVincenzo, man. He's gonna be a huge piece in our second unit.
I'm so happy we didn't give Celtics fans a championship this year, but man, I'm not loving the victory lap from the Warriors fans on Twitter either. I know some rational ones, of course. We've got you and True on all the time, but some of them boys in the Golden
Oh my god! And then it's so funny. After the guy got super excited, there was another guy later on in the video that said, "We don't need KD now." Like you got excited for a Dante DiVincenzo move, which is great. But now it makes you say, you know what, Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant's not coming to the Warriors anyway, in my opinion. But to make you say that, that's wild.
Listen, I like Dante. He's a Bucks pick. I'm a Milwaukee Bucks
Mm-hmm.
fan. Was pretty solid. Like started for a team that won the championship. He was injured for most of the playoff run, but started for that team in the regular season. For the number 17 pick in the draft, he's a really good rebounder for his size. He's a really good athlete. Crazy dunks, great cuts, but man, the guy cannot make a layup. And he hits threes, but he's streaky, and his defense is good when he's disciplined. He's not very disciplined. I say that all to say that there are flaws in the player, but I'm hoping that a place like Golden State, one of the more cerebral systems to play in, but also free-forming, I don't know how they accomplish that at the same time, can help Dante flourish, which I think it can because if they use him like Gary Payton, I think he's going to flourish in that type of role. I really like it. If you think about it, the rumblings are from what you're seeing on Twitter, also some articles out there, is that the main reason that people have been that they're letting some of the key free agents go is that they have plans to have the kids play. Bielitsa goes back to Europe, and you're like, all right, he's the only guy with size on the roster, essentially the backup center of the team. Where are his minutes going to go? He hasn't shown much health, but you've got a 7-footer on the bench. If Kuminga's healthy, he's going to take those minutes. Otto Porter Jr. is one of the best backup forwards in the game. Plays defense, can pretty much switch 2 through 3 or 2 through 4, maybe some 5s, but not punishers, and shoot a great percentage from 3. Who's going to take those minutes? Probably Kuminga, mixed with some Moody, who showed some shooting and defense during the playoff run. So your forwards are there too. The only guy that they wanted to bring back, both because he wasn't old and also because they didn't have an immediate replacement for, was Gary Payton. And they got outbid by the team. We'll talk about them when they got there. But then instead of having a backup plan, because they don't have a young guy they want to play in that role, they don't have Alvarado, which would be fun. They brought in another young guy on a 2-year contract. I believe there's a player option on the second year, so if he plays really well, he probably opts out to try and get more of a bag. But Dante's going to fill that role. I like it for Golden State. Dre, last thought on that. We'll move on to Chicago.
I love it, honestly. Like I said, I mean, I'm definitely going to miss the guys that were there before. Otto Porter, Gary Payton II, Wanda Toscano Anderson, and then, of course, Bielitsa. But I have a lot of optimism that our second unit this year is just going to be just as strong as it was this past year.
One last thought on this. I have this bit on Twitter about all the players associated with Milwaukee that Golden State collects, and they lost 2 in this free agency. Juan Toscano Anderson, who played college ball at Marquette, and Gary Payton II, who played for the Bucks. That's the only reason I associate him with Milwaukee. Going to other teams, but they drafted Patrick Baldwin Jr. out of Milwaukee.
Yes.
And they brought
Yes.
in Dante DiVincenzo, who was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. So don't worry, guys. Their Milwaukee associated players is still at level where they were last year. Let's move on to Chicago, who are a little bit busy. I don't know if it was great. In the draft, they took Dalen Terry, who's kind of a wing combo guard forward. They brought Levine back, who after a little bit of potential rumors of him, taking serious meetings with teams in free agency, doesn't take any meetings with anyone, just pounds out a 5 years, $215 million max with a player option in the 5th year, just gets the bag for Levine. Let me read the rest of them, and then we'll talk about it, Trey. Andre Drummond, who was a really solid backup center for Philadelphia last year before being thrust into a starting role with the Brooklyn Nets after the James Harden Ben Simmons trade, goes to them at 2 years, $6.6 million to back up Nikola Vucevic. Derrick Jones Jr., who I think is a really solid backup wing in this league, goes back to Chicago for 2 years, $6.6 million off the bench. And then today it was announced that Goran Dragic, who was heavily rumored to go to Dallas, to replace Jalen Brunson as well as reunite with his Slovenian national teammate Luka Doncic, instead signs to the Chicago Bulls for 1 year, $2.9 million. Dre, they have too many guards. Is a Kobe White trade coming? Are the reports that Lonzo Ball is not going to be ready for the start of the season true? What are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, I wouldn't be surprised if Lonzo is not ready, honestly, by the start of the season or the start of training camp. It's just sad, man, because Lonzo is a terrific two-way player. Honestly, great on-ball defender, terrific playmaker, able to make reads. So it's definitely difficult to see how everything is trying to transpire for him. I don't know how much of a difference he would have made for them in the playoffs. I think we both agreed that they probably would have not gotten past Milwaukee, even with Lonzo Ball, but they could have at least made it a little more competitive moving forward. But, I do agree, though. I mean, they definitely have too many guards. I wouldn't be surprised if Kobe White is traded, honestly, because even just looking at last year, not saying that he wasn't a big piece of that team, but, he's definitely an asset that they could possibly get rid of moving forward. So it's just up to the Bulls to see, how they can really make these transactions in the future and just create a well-balanced team.
Yeah, I think they cleaned up the margins a little bit. Dragic is going to play a little bit of scoring punch. As much as I believed him to be washed, he had some solid minutes for Brooklyn that ended up just getting swept by Boston in the first round. Enough where you think he could play solid minutes on a playoff team. Not that he's going to do anything for you defensively. Drummond is better than Tristan Thompson. That's actually kind of
that is a fact 100%.
They might have had the worst backup center in the league after Denver signed Boogie Cousins. We'll talk about who they replaced him with, but Andre Drummond is going to be a good backup center for them. Derrick Jones back. Pat Williams healthy, hopefully for the full season. I think Chicago is going to be better, depending, of course, on health, but I also think that you might see some regression from their guys. Like, I think it was a really good year for DeMar. And we're going to see if that happens again.
Yeah, that's the question, though. Is he going to make the same impact? Because my thing is, coming into last year, I thought Zach LaVine was going to be the number one option. I didn't expect DeMar to have an MVP type year. Right. So could that be the possibility this year where LaVine is the number one option? He's really carrying the load, and possibly DeMar may regress. Not saying that DeMar's going to have a bad season, but he's definitely not going to make the same impact as he did this past year.
I hope that's the plan, but I think also giving him a 5-year supermax to Zach LaVine. It's 5 years, 215. I don't know if that's a supermax. Maybe not. But it's 5-year max. That screams first option. So we'll see. Let's go to Denver. I really like Denver's offseason so far. We'll talk about the trade they were involved in too while we're at it, except for one thing, which is it's not going to be the biggest deal in the world, but it's so strange they did it. But anyways, let's start with this. At the draft, they take Christian Brown, who's really solid, guard, can guard small wings, but he's not going to be like a switch defender on the fours by any means, and hits threes, something that they didn't have last year, basically. Drafted him and Peyton. I don't know the kid. I can't remember the kids. I think his last name is Peyton, but I can't remember his first name. Christian Peyton, something like that. who's a big project. I guess that's what people say. Then in free agency, they get Bruce Brown at 2 years, $13 million. I think that's a really good pickup.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
they signed Davon Reed back to a 2-year deal, as well as trade Monte Morris and Will Barton to the
To the
Washington
Wizards.
Wizards for Contavious Caldwell Pope and Ish Smith. KCP is going to be like the best wing defender on there already. I mean, their wing room is a lot better than it was last year. Now they've got Jeff Green, KCP, Christian Brown, Bruce Brown, who I think is going to be great in Denver. And then and I think Ish Smith isn't an upgrade from Monte Morris, but I think
No.
Monte Morris' minutes are going to Bones Highland. I think Ish Smith is taking Facu Campazzo's minutes, who's better than Facu. I think that's smart if that's the way they're playing it, because I think Bones is ready for a bigger role. And if Jamal's back, there wasn't going to be minutes for all of them anyways. The one thing that I don't get is Bookie, who had a really fun season backing up Jokic after not being re-signed or not having
Disappoints me.
guaranteed by Milwaukee. It remains unsigned. Had a couple of good games in the playoffs. Rumor is that, I guess Denver just didn't like what they saw, like personality-wise from Boogie, and that's not what I saw, like what I felt like at all. But those are the reports. He remains unsigned. He's a free agent. No one signed Boogie, but on 1 minute after free agency opened, they didn't search the market at all. They bring in DeAndre Jordan, who has easily been the worst player in the NBA for the past 2 seasons, to back up Nikola Jokic on a 1-year minimum. I mean, it makes no sense, and I like the rest of their offseason so much. I think it's all really solid, really, really solid stuff they did to bring in these guys, especially if the guys that they need to be healthy are healthy. What do you
I
think?
am so happy I'm getting into this, honestly.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'm so
Not to interrupt you, but I was watching Zach Lowe the other day, and he mentioned it. There was a reason why Kenny Atkinson got fired in Brooklyn in 2020, I believe, was because he refused to start DeAndre Jordan over Jared Allen. And looking back at that, everyone kind of agrees why he didn't.
Right.
Because I'll be real, I like DeAndre Jordan. He's very athletic center, but he's not that guy for you. And
he was first team All-NBA once, remember?
Yeah, that makes zero sense to me. Absolutely no sense to me. But now looking at this, and like you mentioned, Boogie had a terrific year last year, and he has proven that he can be a backup center in this league. He's definitely not the player that he once was in Sacramento, even to a degree in New Orleans, but he can definitely show you what he can do as far as spacing the floor, rebounding, rim protection to a degree. So he shows that, he could be a great energizer for a team in the second unit. So I'm not understanding what Denver saw as far as personnel. I don't know if maybe there was some inside things that may have went down, maybe something in the locker room. I don't know. But what I saw on the court and what a lot of people saw on the court, it was great contribution. It was great energy. Boogie probably had his best year since the Sacramento days or maybe New Orleans days, possibly. Sure. Especially, with everything that he has been through, honestly, that was probably one of his best years. Sure. So it just sucks, man, because, he's been fighting to get back in the league, sign with teams. And for some reason, he's just not getting the opportunity, even though he is showcasing a lot of good things. I just hope to see him on the roster soon, man. I mean, and for Denver to sign DeAndre Jordan, for him to back up Jokic, it makes me disgusted. I'm sorry. It definitely just makes me disgusted just thinking about it. DeAndre Jordan of all people. Over DeMarcus Cousins.
There's better centers. I guess centers were getting a lot of money, but you could have waited to see if someone was out there. I'd rather have Robin Lopez than DeAndre Jordan. He's not in a minimum deal. I don't love Robin Lopez, but he's got to back up Jokic. He doesn't have to play a starter spot. Anyways, doesn't matter. Let's move on from Denver. Overall, really like the offseason. I think the important holes have been filled, and it's only the minutes that Jokic aren't playing that do, but they're going to find out almost immediately that he can't play. Whatever. The Knicks.
Look out for mid-season trade, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Let's go to the Knicks, who have done some deals in free agency, and I know that everyone's talking a lot of shit on Twitter because everyone loves to make fun of the Knicks, but we're going to talk about them respectfully, okay? At the draft, they trade number 11 to dump Kemba Walker's salary, essentially. I think they get a future pick out of it. And then before free agency opens, they send Kemba ends up in Detroit, waived. Kemba is still an unsigned free agent, by the way. And then days before, like a day before free agency opened, they send Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel and a couple of seconds to Detroit just to shed some salary. Solid pickups for Detroit. I really like what they've done all offseason. We'll talk about them later. And then they bring in two centers. One that they already had, Mitchell Robinson, back on a 4-year, $60 million contract. Really happy he got the bag. I was worried he was going to get Nerlens Noel, where he holds out, doesn't take the extension because his agent tells him so. And then the center market just dries up. And honestly, the center market was drying up, but they still gave him the contract that was rumored before free agency opened. I'm really happy for Mitch. Isaiah Hartenstein, who had a lot of interest on the free agency market, one of the better backup centers last year with the Clippers, passing, a little bit of shooting, not a ton, a little bit of defense, finish inside, athletic, good IQ, heads to New York. Orlando originally planned to sign him, but he heads to New York on a 2-year, $16 million contract. And then the big one. The Knicks essentially become the mafia and starts hiring people's relatives and family members and coaches, former coaches, and associating themselves with people just to bring them in. And rumored of a Miami meeting canceled. Jalen Brunson doesn't even meet with the Mavericks before free agency open. There's definitely going to be charges brought up to the Knicks, but at the end of the day, he lands with the Knicks with a 4 years, $104 million contract. I don't know what it is year by year, but annually that is $26 million a year for Jalen Brunson. Dre, how are you feeling about the Knicks and their offseason, sir?
I like Jalen Brunson. I definitely like him. It's a good signing, but I mean, I'm cool with a lot of Knicks fans. You know, they're obviously still not excited, and honestly, I can't really blame them to a degree. I mean, look, Jalen Brunson will definitely help elevate the team, but what's the ceiling for them moving forward? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, are we expecting Julius Randle to have a better season than he did last year? Obviously, RJ Barrett is going to continue to thrive and ascend as a all-star type player.
Barrett's him.
Is Tom Thibodeau going to be a better coach? Honestly, so. I don't know. I mean, it's a decent signing, honestly. I like to imagine Brunson and RJ being able to play well alongside one another. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily move the needle, and it's just so funny because I mean, draft night, everybody was like, "Yo, what the fuck are the Knicks doing?" Like, you know, they trade the number 11 pick, and it seemed like, you know, they really come away with nothing. But you know, obviously, as Wolves reported, you know, that was the deal on the table, is that they were going to look to get Jalen Brunson. So. Yeah. It's a good deal. I'm not gonna say that I'm mad at it because I really do like Jalen Brunson. He's definitely a great point guard in this league, but it doesn't necessarily move the needle for New York moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And the reports are that New York knows that. They view Brunson as a great addition to the team, but now it's going to put them over the top. They know they need to make more moves. Here's the point. $26 million a year is probably an overpay of Jalen Brunson. I wouldn't say an atrocious overpay, but likely an overpay. But that's what you have to pay for. People don't want to play for the Knicks right now. And the Mavericks are prepared to match just about any offer that didn't exceed what they were going for. You know what I mean? And the Knicks need a point guard so bad. Brunson's not a floor general by any means, but he's got some playmaking in his hand. He's a self-creator. He can score at all levels, including 3-level scoring always means inside, mid-range, and 3, but inside doesn't necessarily mean post scoring. It usually means you can get to the rim and finish really well. But Brunson brings that too. He can throw little dudes in the post all day. He'll put you in the space.
Yeah.
And he's going to help tremendously. I still think they need someone that's going to pass more, but the important thing is they went all in on a player that they didn't have to send 4 picks for. They didn't send any picks for for Brunson. They can still do the Godfather play and send a shitload of picks over to a team just to get one player to add to the big one, the big one. But right now, they're bringing back most of the guys from last year, but they've consolidated a little bit. No more Nerlens Noel. His backup center is Isaiah Hardenstein, who's really good.
Mm-hmm.
No more
Solid.
Alex trying to play point guard. It's Jalen Brunson doing that. Burks gets to be a wing again. Good for him. RJ gets to take a step forward. Hopefully, Quick and Obi get more minutes this year. Same with Cam Reddish. I know you feel about that. Really quick, we're not going to talk about these.
But hang on, just real quick before we move on. So, just hypothetically, if everything goes well for New York, if everyone's healthy, if Julius Randle has a better season than he did this previous year, what's the ceiling for this team? Is it play-in? Is it like possibly a 6-7 seed? What do we see in New York moving forward?
Their ceiling is a second round exit.
Okay, that's actually higher than I was. Honestly, I was gonna say at least first round.
I mean, they've got if they're like a real basketball team again, and Julius Randle is playing, I could see them beating like a
Philly.
Cleveland, maybe like a Philly, maybe like an Atlanta, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's optimistic. You're right. It doesn't really matter. Phoenix has only made 2 moves so far. Aiden's still a free agent. They've traded for Jock Landale, just sent cash, who's a backup center. And I know the Windy memes are now. Why would the Phoenix Suns do that?
Windy put up 40 and 15, my boy.
That motherfucker has been triple doubling since the trade deadline when he was right about Harden and everything. He has been running circles around Shams and Woj. Phoenix has also signed Josh Okogie and Damian Lee. I'm sure you're going to miss Damian Lee so much, Dre, signing a 1-year deal with Phoenix. Everyone is saying this about those moves. It's how you round around a roster that is going to need like the touch-ups. Josh Okogie is the guy you sign if you're about to trade maybe Mikal Bridges, Phoenix thinks they're getting KD. I think Phoenix really thinks they're getting KD at this point.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. Cleveland makes 3 moves, fun moves that I like, more wholesome people to add to that Cleveland thing. Darius Garland signed a huge extension, Good for him. Colin Sexton is still a free agent. There's rumors that Dallas has offered him like a $21 million a year contract. I don't believe he's signed anything as of yet, so we don't know what's going to happen with him. But the Cavaliers bring in Robin Lopez as their backup center for a 1-year minimum, solid backup center. Raul Neto, Brazilian guard, backup guard. He was a backup point guard for Washington for so many years. Solid backup point guard, probably better than Rondo, at least 1-year minimum. And the prodigal son returns after an awesome season, and it sucks with an injury. They brought back Ricky Rubio on a 3-year, $18.4 million contract, which means Rubio probably finishes his career with the Cavaliers, which is really nice to see. Dre, give me one thought and we'll move on. We don't have to talk about this too long, but we're happy.
It's crazy. After the Garland extension signing or the news that broke, I saw a lot of people just really debating on whether he really deserved it. Obviously, he's been still developing over his first few years in the league, and obviously last year was a real breakout season, a most improved type season. So obviously that's the reason why he ended up getting the bag. So I don't have a problem with it. Garland is the future of Cleveland. I mean, I know they got Evan Mobley, they still got Jerry Allen and those guys. So with Garland still being a part of that future, you definitely got to make sure that he's taken care of moving forward. And my boy Ricky Rubio, man, I'm absolutely happy. Absolutely happy that he is back, man. Like he ended up, obviously tearing his ACL, I believe. That was tearing his ACL. Unfortunately, having to miss the rest of the season. But before that, he was having a career year, in my opinion. A career year. But the formula just works in that backcourt with Rubio and Garland. Obviously Garland's a terrific playmaker, but it's kind of like how we imagine DeJounte and Trae Young. Trae Young is a really good playmaker, but Trae is probably a much better player to play off the ball. Same thing per se with Garland, but with his scoring versatility, having Rubio, dictate the floor, be that playmaker, you allow Garland to just be able to be more of a scorer. first and being a playmaker as well. So I like the combination. Once Rubio gets healthy, and he's able to come back, let's see what Cleveland can do.
We'll see what Cleveland can do. Hopefully Rubio gets healthy during the season. Let's move on to Dallas. So they've made a couple of moves this offseason. They've lost Jalen Brunson, who was easily their second best player in the playoffs and the regular season last year. But they have added, remember in the draft, they traded into number 31 to select Jaden Hardy, who is going to get a lot of looks as that primary point guard with Brunson gone. If there isn't a trade for Irving or someone else in the works for them, they are on the phones. You can believe that they're on the phones right now talking about trades. But they re-signed Theo Pinson, who's a great bench celebrating guy, kind of annoying. But
celebrating guy.
He's a guy you want on your bench. I think he's a good vibes guy for sure. 1 year minimum for him. And then they bring in JaVale McGee, 3 years, $20.1 million. Maybe a little bit of an overpay, but JaVale McGee was probably the best backup center in the league last year. And going to a team that could use more size. The question now is they've got Christian Wood, JaVale McGee, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith. Probably need to move at least one of those guys, probably Dwight Powell, to make sure the rotation goes well, because JaVale McGee said they signed him to be their starting center, which is weird. We're going to see how that goes, but I think they're going to go big next year with Wood and JaVale. I kind of like that. Dre, in addition to these moves, we're going to see if they're on the trade market for someone else big, but how are you feeling about the Dallas Mavericks?
I'm not mad at it. I think having a guy like JaVale McGee definitely helps Dallas's interior defense, to say the least. But I'm trying to imagine the starting lineup, because so they're going to have Christian Wood at the 4, McGee at the 5. So I guess that slides guys like Kleber and Dorian Finney-Smith to the bench as well. Okay.
I guess so. I mean, if you want to go gigantic, I wouldn't hate starting Dorian Finney-Smith at the 3.
That makes sense. That makes sense as well. That definitely makes sense. And obviously a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. as well, when he is healthy, he can be a part of that starting lineup as well. So, Dallas showed us a lot last year. Obviously, Kidd. I know a lot of people still have their feelings about Jason Kidd, but he definitely proved to be a really good coach, to say the least, especially in this past postseason. So now having a guy like Christian Wood, who is a versatile big or a versatile 4, to say the least, and of course, having a great size in JaVale McGee, I really think that helps Dallas move forward. I mean, I know they lost Jalen Brunson, and obviously that is a big loss, but there's still a lot of hopes that Dallas can remain a contender on the West.
Yeah, and if the starting lineup is how it sounds so far, if you're starting Luka with Hardaway Jr., creators, initiators, scorers, with defensive big pieces and Dorian Finney-Smith, Christian Wood, who's also a scorer, and listen, the defense hasn't been there, but I think if he's in a system, it'll work. I don't want to see it first. And JaVale McGee, that's a massive lineup that works, and it could end up beating the shit out of teams. And they were just beating the shit out of teams. That's how they won playoff series, was just physically overwhelming teams. And they're doubling down on that. They've still got guys like Jaden Hardy, Maxi Kleber, Reggie Bullock, Dwight Powell off the bench that they can use. So they got some depth too. We'll see if they make a consolidation move. But next on my list is Minnesota. I'm going to save Minnesota for the end of this because I want to talk about their free agent signings and then the trade. Dre, I know you want to talk about the trade. I don't want to just get in the middle of this. I want somewhere that people can find that they're just trying to hear about that. So if you're listening right now, forward to the end of this, the end of all the free agency signings, if you want to hear about Minnesota. So let's go to Portland right away. Portland's traded for Jeremy Grant at a couple days before the draft. Added just a starting caliber 3-4, really solid for not a ton of draft equity. Draft Shaden Sharp, still don't really get it, but they draft Shaden Sharp. Bring back Drew Eubanks on a 1-year deal. Bring back Yusuf Nurkic on a 4-year, $70 million deal. It's a lot, but Nurk's been a starting center in the league forever. He's going to get a bag. Anthony Simons back on a 4-year, $100 million deal, so $1 million a year less than Jalen Brunson. And Gary Payton II to Portland from the championship Golden State Warriors on a 3 years, $28 million deal. $9 a year, really solid value for Gary Payton. He got the bag after applying to be a video coordinator with the Warriors last year. He got a fucking bag.
Right.
Feeling about the overall result of these moves, Dre?
I guess they're cool to say the least. I'm not gonna say I'm super big on Portland. I mean, obviously, having a guy like that on like
Jeremy Grant.
Grant, yeah, Jeremy Grant definitely helps elevate the team, but I still
Yeah,
don't really see nothing for Portland moving forward, man. I get it. They got Dame, they got Anthony Simons, they got Jeremy Grant. Obviously Nurk is another big signing as well, but I don't really see the ceiling being too high for Portland moving forward, unfortunately.
I agree. They're definitely better. Jeremy Grant is a better wing than they had on anything last year. A starting lineup of Dame, Gary Payton II, Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, Yusuf Nurkic with Anthony Simons and Nasir Little, guys like
Mm-hmm.
that off the bench. I think it's better than last year. Last year got the number 7 pick in the draft. I know there was injuries, but we'll see. I'm gonna bang this drum until I'm wrong. Maybe Shaden Sharp becomes this guy, but I'm gonna bang this drum. A perfect fit for that starting lineup would be a 6'7" wing with defensive 1 through 5 type of potential and playmaking chops. Still don't know why Portland didn't draft Dyson Daniels at 7. I think he would have been perfect for them, and I would have been a lot higher on their prospects this year. But let's move on to the Clippers, who have had and really solid offseason, again, as the Clippers always do. One thing to note, they did lose Isaiah Hartenstein, one of their yearly
Mm-hmm.
finds in free agency. And they don't have a backup center as of right now. They don't have a center beyond Zubats, who signed a 3-year extension. Good for him. They don't have any bigs behind him right now on the roster. They're fully committing to this 5-out, as many wings as you can get. And they doubled down on that by signing Nick Batum back to a 2-year, $22 million deal. A little bit of a bag for Nick Batum there. They brought back Amir Coffey already on a 3-year, $11 million contract. Really solid. Happy
Mm-hmm.
for Coffey to get a second contract already for him. Higher than expectations, for sure. And then the big one for the Clippers, baby. He's back. He's back in the NBA. We get to watch him on hopefully a nightly basis, although he'll probably take back-to-backs off because he's old. John Wall is joining the Los Angeles Clippers on a 2-year, $13.2 million contract, so he got the full exception from the Clippers. Starting lineup right now, Dre, hold your breath, is I would imagine John Wall's not signing if it's not a starter. So John Wall, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I would do Robert Covington and even
I agree.
then you've got guys like Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Nick Batum, Marcus Morris off the bench. They can still make another move if they want to. Dre, in my opinion, the Clippers on paper are easily the best roster in the league. How are you feeling about that take?
I love it, honestly. I absolutely love it. And I know he's missed the last year and a half per se, but I think John Wall still has a decent amount in the tank. Having to play alongside guys like Paul George, Kawhi
Yep.
Leonard, Rocco, the rest of these guys, he can really be that playmaker, that slasher that he can be. So the pressure is really not going to be on him to really carry the load for this team. So I think John Wall is a really big pickup. Obviously Paul George seems to like it. I'm sure Kawhi probably loves it as well. So
Kawhi
Jordan,
signs off on it. Yeah, if he doesn't,
oh yeah,
they
yeah.
don't sign him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Jordan, I know you. I know you'll probably be listening to this. Don't be scared. I know that KD might be coming out west. I know Kyrie might be coming out west, but the Clippers are still legit. The Clippers are going to be legit if they're healthy. Everything goes well. Kawhi has a solid year. PG has a solid year. John Wall has a solid year. They can at least be top 5 in the West.
They can at least be top 5 in the West. I super agree with that. And I think John Wall is just a fun matchup. Those first few months when it was the team that never happened, the team that almost happened but never happened was the John Wall, James Harden, Christian Wood team. We only saw that team for a few weeks before Harden forced the trade, but Christian Wood averaged crazy numbers. John
Yep.
Wall, he still had his speed. If you are buying in on John Wall's hype from then, I super get it, and I really appreciate it. Let's move on to Boston. We could just do their offseason right now. They've only made one move on the free agency. We mentioned that in the DeJounte Murray trade, Danilo Gallinari was acquired by the Spurs and bought out. He signs with the Boston Celtics for 2 years, probably around $13 million contract. They didn't release the financial details, but they said it was the full exception, which is about 6 point something. So we're doing 13 point something for Danilo Gallinari to Boston. And then in a subsequent move, they send Daniel Tice, Aaron Naismith, Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, Juwan Howard, and a 2023 first-round pick to the Indiana Pacers for Malcolm Brogdon, like a pretty significant couple of pickups for the reigning Eastern Conference champions there with the Boston Celtics. They say they envision Brogdon as a sixth man, so they're still starting Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Rob Will going big, but then off the bench, you've got sixth man Malcolm Brogdon, who brings calm, scoring, and some defense. Not health, though. We're going to see if his health holds up. And then Danilo Gallinari, who's already like the third best solo creator on that team. If you just need a bucket, and sometimes that Boston team just needed a bucket from somebody, and if you couldn't do it, nobody could do it. So hopefully Danilo does that. However, he gets big time targeted on defense in the playoffs. Dre, how are you feeling about the Celtics? One thought, and we'll move on.
The Celtics will be back. Celtics will definitely be back. I definitely like the signing of Gallinari. Gallinari has some golden moments in Atlanta over the past few years, so I'm definitely a big fan of that. And then obviously getting the trade from Malcolm Brogdon, definitely taking that pressure off of Tatum and Brown as being playmakers, so they could primarily focus in on the offensive end as far as putting the ball in the basket. So I think this is what Boston needed, honestly. I don't know what the ceiling is. I don't know if it's a return to the finals, if you want to say, but they'll definitely be up there as a top contender in the East. Again.
They definitely didn't sit on their laurels. They made the finals, and they said, we need to get better because everyone else is going to be better next year, and I really like that they did that. Let's move on.
Hang on one second. Before we go, can we just give the praise to Brad Stevens as definitely a better general manager than he was a coach, honestly, because he's definitely made some good moves for them.
Well, he was a good coach, too. Just a couple of weird
decent coach, yeah.
Too, but he has made some really good moves. I mean, I still think he's selling first-round picks for veterans, and he's making the right choices for them. But trading for Al Horford was a great move. You do that move 10 out of 10 if you're Boston, but they do trade Alperen Şengün. Like, they're not trading nothing for these guys.
Right.
Şengün is going to become a pretty impactful player in this league, I think, at center, a position that they were looking to fill. So I think that he's doing a good job, but some of these picks may end up just becoming really special, and Şengün might already be that, and you're going to have to look back on that if they don't end up winning a title. But he is choosing the right veterans, at least. He is trading picks for the Al Horfords of the world. Malcolm Brogdon, man, if he's not healthy, that's going to look really rough because they didn't give up anything of value except for that pick, and who knows what that pick turns into. So we'll see. Let's move on to Washington, who have had a really solid offseason too. Not incredible, but solid. They sign Beal back to a 5-year, $251 Supermax. Beal's great grandkids are going to be rich, and that's the reason he makes this move, but he's likely never going to win a title in this league like this. And Washington is going to be paying him $50 million a year for 5 years, baby. They're not going to have any cap space forever. They also bring Anthony Gill to Washington on a 2-year, $22 million contract, and Delon Wright on a 2-year, $16 million contract. I already sent this over you to text, Dre, but I'm going to tell everyone else. Really want to give credit to Washington for turning what was last year one of the worst guard rooms in the league. You've got Beal, Dinwiddie, nobody else beyond like maybe Raul Neto. And now this year you're going in with a guard room of Monte Morris, Bradley Beal, DeLon Wright, and Johnny Davis, who they drafted at number 10 in the draft. It's not a top 5, top 10 even, but it's middle of the pack, and they were the worst last year. Especially DeLon Wright, I think is a great thing. Dre, one thought on the Wizards, and we'll move on.
Honestly, the Wizards still have a pretty decent roster.
Yeah,
the Wizards definitely still have a pretty decent roster, to say the least. But we all know that this team is really not going to go anywhere. But I mean, I like guys like Kuz, I like Denny, Rui, the rest of these guys, playing alongside Bradley Beal. And as for Bradley Beal, I really don't want to hear shit else about, him not being in a position to win. He had an interview with Taylor Rooks, and he was saying that he wanted to put himself in the best position to win. So I know a lot of people were speculating, oh, man, could this be Bradley Beal on the way out? Everybody knows in the right fucking mind he was going to re-sign with the Wizards, and that's what happened. I'm not mad at him. Get your bread, like, what I'm saying? Like you mentioned before, his great-grandkids, they're going to be able to eat forever off of that. Right. So at the end of the day, from a financial perspective, it's definitely a good move. But as far as his career, Washington is just not getting anywhere, honestly.
Listen, man, for his career, but it's a $250 million. Like, it's a $250 million.
It's a lot of money.
That's a shitload of fucking money, man. $250 million. $250 million is what he signed on for. You're never, ever turning that down. Shouts to Beal for getting the ultimate bag, and shouts to Washington for a starting lineup of, I guess, Monte Morris, Bradley Beal, Denny Avdia, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis. We'll
Oh,
see you
yeah.
in the play-in next year, Washington. We'll see you in the play-in. Anything else, Dre, on that?
That's it.
Orlando. Nothing much. Listen, number one pick of the draft, Paolo Banchero. Very excited to see it. They bring back Gary Harris on a 2-year, $26 million contract. The bag for Gary Harris, who was rumored to get like offers from contenders for like $6 million or like a $10 million full exception from like playoff contenders. Fuck that. He's signing for 2 years, 26 for a team that just had the number one pick in the draft and is trying to go back to the playoffs. Mo Bamba returns. Their original plan was Isaiah Hartenstein after he gets scooped by the Knicks, as they do. They bring back Mo Bamba on a 2-year, $21 million contract. That's a pretty solid value. Dre, one thought, straight up, just one thought, nothing more on Orlando.
Orlando's youth is still gonna make some noise this year. I don't expect anything more. This team will probably be like another 11, 12 seed in the East. But having a guy like Paolo, who's a great creator around the mid range, and just being able to attack the rim as well. Then on top of that, you got guys like Cole Anthony, Marco Fultz, whenever he's healthy. What's the guy?
Jonathan Isaac, whenever he's healthy.
Jonathan Isaac as well. The rest of those guys as well. Mo Bamba, I still have hopes for Mo Bamba. I still do. I know a lot of people have kind of given up on him. I know a lot of people were also expecting that if Shed did get selected at number one, that Mo Bamba was gone. But I still have high hopes for Mo Bamba moving forward. But Orlando's youth is going to be something to watch for it once again this year, and I think they could definitely make some noise. Will they make the playoffs? Of course not, but it's still going to be interesting as far as how they develop.
Lineup right now looks like Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. Fun team.
Yes.
Watching a lot of them. Next on my list is Brooklyn. We're also going to save them for the end, like Minnesota, because we've got a lot to talk about with Brooklyn. Let's go over to Toronto. Toronto's got a little bit spooky here. They got some real nice signings, and they're in rumored talks for Kevin Durant. They bring back Chris Boucher on a 3-year, $35.25 million contract. Really solid value there. Thad Young back on a 2-year, $16 million contract. And Otto Porter stolen, vultured from the Warriors on a 2-year contract. Size, length. And Otto Porter brings something that a lot of those size defenders that they have in Toronto don't have, some shooting. They've got like 11 guys between 6'5" and 6'9", something like that, I read. They drafted Christian Coloco, who might get minutes this year. We'll see. He's the only 7-footer on the roster. Big man, but we'll see. They had rumors of being interested in Rudy Gobert. They had rumors of being interested in other big men. Right now, I don't know. They're just loading up on these wings, man. It's crazy. Trey, one thought on Toronto.
Toronto will be back. Probably around that 5, 6, 7 seed in my opinion. I feel like with having such a well orchestrated coach and Nick Nurse, and then of course having guys like Van Vliet, Siakam, OG Anunoby, the rest of those guys, Scotty Barnes, Rookie of the Year. Shout out to my guy. But Toronto will be back. Regardless of they make a sign and trade for KD or not, they're going to be okay either way.
Yeah, they're gonna be really fucking dangerous in a couple of years, if not this year already. One thought, really quick. This is the only move they made beyond the draft. Lou Dort back to OKC, 5-year, $87.5 million contract. Sounds like a ton for Lou Dort. It's about 17.5 annually there. I really don't think that's too bad for a guy that's been really loyal to OKC, brought elite defense, and has some creation chops. Dre, one quick thought on Lou Dort back to OKC.
I love it. He's definitely a big part of their future moving forward. Still very young. Still has a lot of versatility to his game. So I like it. I like it a lot.
The Lakers, I saw a tweet. I don't mean to steal this joke, but they quickly went from a old folks home last year to last chance you this year. They've signed Damian Jones to a 2-year contract, young backup center. Troy Brown Jr. to a 1-year minimum year contract. As a backup wing. Lonnie Walker IV, who I really liked as a sneaker free agent this free agency period. 1 year, $6.5 million full exception contract to their squad. Maybe they get Kyrie. Maybe they get both Kyrie and KD. There's rumors. We'll talk about that. But a couple of pickups here. I think Lonnie Walker is going to bring back a lot of the actions they used to run with Dennis Schroeder. I think he brings a lot more athleticism and speed, some creation to that roster and that lineup. Dre, one thought on the Lakers' minimal free agency moves.
Not bad. The Lonnie Walker sign is definitely something that's really impressive, especially considering that when you get rid of or allow a guy like Malik Monk to go to Sacramento.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like it to say the least. The Lakers are the Lakers. I mean, at this point, man. I mean, it's really nothing really that big that really like gets me excited. But I mean, Lonnie Walker is a pretty good signing for them, though.
One thought, Tyus Jones, one of the best point guards on the market after Jalen Brunson, back to Memphis on a 2-year, $30 million contract. He gets a little bit of a bag, and it's good value for Memphis. Dre, one thought on that.
He's probably the best backup point guard in the league today. So, for having him back in Memphis, and a lot of people may not really understand, but he had some really good moments, being in the starting lineup, but John Morant was not there. Yeah. So for him to be back in Memphis, that's a huge piece of their team.
If John Morant is going to continue having large stretches of the regular season where he's injured, having what Dre calls the best backup point guard in the league is a must. And if he already knows your system, you give him a little bit of money while you're at it. Philadelphia is having a reunion. Daryl Morey's in town, bringing back the Houston Rockets. He already traded for James Harden last year.
Philly Rockets.
The Philly Rockets. Now, this isn't the Philly Rocket, but I mentioned that they traded for DeAnthony Melton at the draft. They signed Danwell House, backup wing, 2-year, $8.5 million contract. And Iron Man eats nails for breakfast. PJ Tucker, 37 years young to Philadelphia for 3 years, $33 million contract, fully guaranteed. He's going to be 40 when he's done with that contract, Dre. Honestly, it's an overpay for PJ. But
it is. It is very much so.
And he's going to be 40, and you're going to probably have to waive him at some point and have to pay him dead cap money for a couple of years. But he was very impactful for Miami last year, who, by the way, have not replaced him. I'm a little worried if they don't make a trade that they're just not going to have a starting four. It's going to be Markieff Morris, man. Or fucking Nikola Jovic, who was exposed last night in the summer league. But he made an impact. And this is a better team than what had last year. It sounds like Harden's taking his offseason seriously. I'll believe it when I fucking see it. But those are the rumors, at least. And right now, starting lineup of Maxey with Harden, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, and Embiid. It's big. You can play defense. You can take out Maxey and you can put in Melton for even more defense. You can go smaller. You can bring in Danwell House if you don't want to start Tobias. I think they've had a really good offseason. I'm being fully serious. I think they're going to be like a top 4 team next year in the East, health allowing. And I think the signings that they made make them better. Dre, one thought on Philly.
The PJ Tucker factor will definitely be felt in Philly, just as it was last year in Miami, exactly. And as it was the previous year in Milwaukee, in which the Bucks won the championship.
They had no dogs last year.
Mm-hmm. And this is really going to help Philly elevate. And honestly, with him, I think they can at least make the conference finals. Just because, I mean, you definitely need a guy with that type of like dog mentality. You need a rough rider. You need a guy that's an enforcer outside of like a guy like Joel Embiid. So, having PJ definitely helps elevate the team. I do agree that it's kind of an overpay, especially, $11 million a year for a guy like PJ. I mean, it's like, especially when you think about John Wall, who I believe, 2 years or $13 million.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's a little bit different situations, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But it's like, I definitely agree with the fact that, it's a little bit of an overpay, but when you look at the impact that PJ has brought to the table over the past few years, is like, if you're Philly, then, you definitely go for that. So I definitely understand that.
I think he can do it for this year. If he can do it for next year, it's super worth it. But again, he's going to be 38, so we'll see. The Bucks brought all their boys back, plus a new white boy. They bring back Javon Carter on a 2-year, $4 million contract. Wes Matthews back on a 1-year minimum contract, both impact players off the bench. Bobby Portis, best bench player in Bucks history.
I'll let you have this one.
Back for the bag, 4 years, $49 million contracts. Bobby's a Buck for life, baby. You guys all, Miami's interested in signing him. New York wants him back. Chicago wants to explore signing Bobby Portis. It's never going to happen. He's back. Also, they signed Joe Ingles. At first, Dre, I'm going to talk about the Bucks. At first, y'all saw me on Twitter. I had a little bit of a meltdown, as I always do. I really do. I'm immediately emotional at anything that happens in basketball. It's the way that I express my fandom. I apologize because I was kind of going at his life. But after having some time to think about it, a lot of dudes were signing for way more than you would have anticipated. Like we mentioned, Gary Harris got 2 years, 13 a year. PJ Tucker got 3 years, 11 a year. Guys like JaVale McGee were getting $6-7 million a year. Ricky Rubio was getting around there. Like Isaiah Hartenstein, 2 years, $8 million. All we had was the 6, and we decided to go on a bet on Joe Ingles, who is kind of like a Diet Coke Chris Middleton, if you want to do a lazy comparison. In Utah, was a creator, a fantastic three-point shooter, and an okay defender. Obviously, with his age, he can't stay in front of very athletic players in the league. But if he's surrounded by defenders like Drew Holiday, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and soon cometh MarJon Beauchamp, I'm all the way in on him, baby. He's going to be back. I think it's actually an okay signing, all things considered. I really would like them to bet on some more youth because Ingles is ancient and they continue to pick up ancient players. But I really think MarJon's going to play an important factor this year. And I'm excited that they brought back the people that were free agents. Pat Connaughton also accepted his player option. Dre, I know I always say everything that needs to be said about Milwaukee, but give me one thought on them and we'll move on.
Definitely bringing back a lot of the core guys is big for Milwaukee. A guy like Javon Carter and the rest of those guys, like that's definitely big. I was honestly on the same boat as you. Especially for signing a guy like Joe Ingles. Like we know exactly what he brings to the table. Especially during his Utah days before his injury.
Yeah.
But what is his availability moving forward? Like are we expecting him to be back? At the start of the season, towards the middle of the season, and whatever. Yeah, and whenever he does come back, how much is he going to be able to give to us? We know that he's going to be able to space the floor. We know that he's going to be able to, to create shots, knock down 3-point shots. But I don't know. I guess I'm kind of concerned with his availability, and then of course his impact to the team. So if he's able to make the same impact that he did in Utah, I'm fine with it. But I don't know if I'm really have my hopes up for it as other people maybe.
Here's what I'll ask you. You have healthy Utah Joe Ingles. Even the Ingles we saw before the torn ACL, he looked a little bit washed, but was still kind of doing his thing. You have him and Chris Middleton goes down. Do you beat the Celtics in 7 with that version of Joe Ingles if you're the Bucks? Even if you don't think so, that's what the Bucks think so. That's why they make this move. And I agree with they don't need him to be. They don't need him to play a second in the regular season if he's not ready with the ACL. He's there for the playoffs, baby. It's purely a playoff move.
That's true. I'm thinking about it now. I don't know if they get past Boston, but I will say that if they have a guy like Joe Ingles who is able to make some offense happen, especially being able to help Giannis, because Giannis didn't have any fucking help in that game 7.
Yeah,
they at least don't get blown out by 28 points or whatever.
Yeah, so we'll see. Malik Monk to Sacramento, 2 years, $19 million. How do you feel about it?
Not too bad. The pairing of his former buddy at Kentucky, De'Aaron Fox.
Yep.
I don't really care much for Sacramento. I mean, look, Keegan Murray played a phenomenal game last night in the Summer League, so that definitely gives a lot of Kings fans high hopes for the future, especially after they were absolutely livid that they didn't get Jaden Ivey with the 4th pick, but Sacramento is just Sacramento, man. I mean, you can't really get too hyped up about them. We'll just have to see what they're made for moving forward.
Cody Martin back to Charlotte, 4 years, $32 million, was a restricted free agent. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I like Cody Martin a lot. Charlotte is in a really crazy situation, if you want to say, not even just discussing the whole Miles Bridges situation, but obviously, having bringing in Steve Clifford as their head coach. I definitely don't agree with that. I'm really interested to see where this team goes next year. I mean, we know they got LaMelo, they got Rozier, they got a whole lot of other guys. Gordon Hayward will be back as well. They're going to be a really interesting team to look out for this year. I don't know exactly what their ceiling is, but I just want to see how they come out next season.
Not to brush over the Miles Bridges situation, very simple. Very simple. There are photos and stories from his partner, who he has been charged for felony assault. He There's photos. If you want to find them, you can find them on Twitter, and you can find her
Mm-hmm.
telling about the story. We don't need to talk about the intricacies of it. I hope he saved his money from his rookie contract, because I don't know if he's going to get another one, and I certainly wouldn't be giving him a contract either. The last rumor is that the Hornets are going to be pulling his qualifying offer, and that's it. If someone signs him, it happens so often in the sports business that people may brush it over, but just shouldn't be in the league. Really bad person shit from Miles Bridges. Let's move on. Jalen Smith back to Indiana, 2 years, $9.5 million. Dre, how do you feel about it?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Jalen Smith back to Indiana, 2 years, 9.5. How do you feel?
Not mad at it. Definitely another piece to add to Indiana's rebuilding future. So I'm not mad at it. I like it.
I was hoping that I thought a smart contender would get him for a similar contract. Must have been no biters if he was going to take, four something. And maybe they promised him minutes. Hopefully he gets more minutes. I think he's got some promise in this league. Sticks. Jalen Smith back to Indiana. Aaron Holiday back to Atlanta, or not back to Atlanta, but signs to Atlanta for 1 year minimum contract. They lost their backup point guard, DeLon Wright, to Washington. Remember, they got a new starting point guard in DeJounte Murray, or shooting guard, however you define him in trade. In that deal, they also made a consolidation deal, sending Kevin Huerter out to Sacramento for Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, and the top 14 protected 2024 first-round pick. I actually like that move for Atlanta. I think Justin Holiday could start even for you if you wanted to go long and wingy. I think they needed more wings. I think Mo Harkless is cooked, but I think Kevin Huerter, who wasn't going to get the minutes that he wanted to anymore with a Murray trade coming in, I thought it was going to be Bogdan traded. Maybe he still will be, but how are you feeling about Atlanta going into the new year? We talked about this a little bit with DeJounte, so give me one thought.
I like it. They still have like a few of the other core guys. Obviously, Trey. Keeping John Collins is big. Well, it could be big or little. Depending on the situation, how John Collins feels. Having a guy like DeAndre Hunter as well, still in the starting lineup, and then of course Capella, Onyeka. So they still have a pretty solid team. And I know that the backcourt of DeJounte Murray and Trae Young will be like, in my opinion, will be an excellent like combination. I know I said earlier that, the Hawks are top four. When you look at the whole trajectory of the team, it's like, they're definitely a playoff team, honestly. But can they compete with, let's say, for instance, like, the top teams next season? It's obviously not Brooklyn. It'll be Milwaukee. Philly will be up there. Boston will definitely be up there.
Maybe Miami, maybe Atlanta, maybe maybe Cleveland if they bounce back.
Cleveland, yeah, that's true. So I can see Atlanta possibly being better than Cleveland just because they definitely have more experience on their side. I think Philly's a toss-up, honestly. I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think Philly could be a toss-up between those two, but they're definitely going to be at least like up there as far as the title, or at least as far as a playoff contender.
Yeah. Jayshawn Tate back to Houston, 3 years, $22 million. It's not necessarily a Lou Dort bag, but it's a bit of a bag for Jayshawn, who's been one of the best defenders on one of the teams that doesn't play defense in this league. Hopefully they will now. I think a wing or a forward duo of Jayshawn Tate, Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith Jabari Smith Jr. kind of has nightmares on people defensively. Dre, don't talk about Houston. Just give me Jayshawn Tate love for 1 second.
I like it. Definitely, like I mentioned before, definitely another piece added to their future. So he got the bag. So I'm definitely happy for him.
Detroit, they draft Jaden Ivey, Jalen Durant. Loved their draft. Just absolutely loved it. In free agency, they re-signed Marvin Bagley, who you can just tell they're absolutely smitten on. Like they draft Durant. They trade for Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel, so that's two centers in Noel and Durant, and then they still sign Marvin Bagley for 3 years, $37.5 million. That's a pretty solid fucking contract for a guy who is largely considered a bust, and I'm not complaining whatsoever. I think Detroit's a great situation for him, and I'm a big fan of Marvin Bagley getting a little bit of love. And while Marvin Bagley is being treated like a bust and getting a little bit of love, why don't they do the same thing to Kevin Knox, who was coming over for a contract 2 years, $6 million. The dude has done nothing in this league, and it's not necessarily his fault. The Knicks development program is among the worst in this league, and then he was sent to Atlanta where he was given some garbage time minutes. He's never really gotten a chance in this league. Let's see if Detroit has it for him. Dre, one thought on Detroit's offseason. They also trade Jeremy Grant, don't forget.
Oh man, Detroit. I like the way Casey. You know, we know what he did. You know, really elevating that Toronto team, and I feel like he's going to do the same thing with this Detroit team. I don't know if it's this year or possibly next year. This team will be up there at least in the play-in position, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they got a lot more vets. Don't forget they've also got Kelly Olynyk, low key.
Yep.
Between Jalen Durant, Nerlens Noel, Kelly Olynyk, Isaiah Stewart, and Marvin Bagley, something's going to have to give there. That's way too many bigs. But Miami, really quick, lost P.J. Tucker, have not replaced him, drafted Nikola Jovic in the first round, Dwayne Dedmon back on a 2-year, $9 million contract, and Victor Oladipo, who many thought was going to go to another team, back on a 1-year, $11 million contract. Dre, one thought on Miami, and let's move on to the big shit.
Well, the loss of PJ Tucker, like we mentioned before, definitely is a big hit for the team. I mean, Miami's still going to be up there as far as, like, you know, playoff contender. They still got Jimmy, they still got Victor Oladipo, who just resigned, they still got Bam. I know people are still, like, you know, have mixed emotions about Tyler Hero, but he's back, and maybe Duncan Robinson would get some more minutes. I'm not sure, along with Max Strus and the rest of those guys as well. So obviously, you know, losing in a force like Tucker definitely is a big loss, but Miami will still be up there as far as, you know, a top playoff contender in the East.
Yeah, Miami's going to be the same, but that as a whole, man, I mean, they've been rumored to be in the mix for Jay Crowder if he gets dealt. There's rumors that they were shopping him. And if they get Jay Crowder back, I think they're right where they were last year. But if they don't replace that power forward spot, I'm actually really worried about their rotation this year. Let's move on to the big stuff. I'm marking it right now, 1:10 on the dot. We're talking about Rudy Gobert. Oh, boy. All right, here's Minnesota's offseason, okay? They sign Kyle Anderson to a 2-year, $18 million contract, which I think is great value, and I think Kyle Anderson brings a lot to that team. They needed more wing defense. He brings wing defense. They needed more shooting. He's not a great shooter, but he has an offensive game that can really help space out the floor. And then he has playmaking chops. He can run a pick and roll. He can pass the ball around. They needed an upgrade at point guard. They couldn't get an upgrade at point guard, but they got Kyle Anderson who brings those chops. Then they do the big one. The big one. They send unprotected 2023, 2025, and 2027 first-round picks, as well as a 2029 first-round pick, top 5 protected, Walker Kessler, who was the number 2022 pick in the 2022 NBA draft. Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, all of that to the Utah Jazz in return for Rudy Gobert. They are going massive. The Minnesota Timberwolves are trotting out a Twin Tower lineup, and let's fill it out right here, right now. D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jaden McDaniels, who they were able to keep in the deal, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. And I got to tell you, now that we've had some distance from it, it's an overpay. Maybe a massive overpay for Rudy Gobert, but I see the vision for Minnesota. Dre, I want to hear your thoughts first, though.
This is crazy.
I know your thoughts on Rudy Gobert. So I'm sure seeing someone trade this much for him has some thoughts. Let's hear them.
So, honestly, like, my whole thoughts on the whole trade, it wasn't even really about Minnesota. It was really about Utah, and it's like, you know, as far as what's next, because obviously Woj reported that they're looking to really build around Donovan Mitchell. So I'm looking at this team, you know, obviously, you know, you got a young rookie like Walker Kessler, right. You got Malik Beasley, you got Patrick Beverley,
Vando
as well, Jared Vanderbilt. Like, is this team going to help Donovan Mitchell elevate? I mean, obviously, you know, they still got you know, some other good pieces as well that they're keeping as well. I think they just sent Royce O'Neal somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
Royce O'Neal to Brooklyn for a
Brooklyn, yep.
first-round pick. They've still got Mike Conley in town. They've still got Rudy Gay in town.
I'm sorry, this Utah team is not really it for me. I mean, look, there may be a different circumstance moving forward. I just don't see it as of right now. But look, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll definitely come on air and I'll say, what, I was wrong. But back to Minnesota's point, I'm not mad at the trade. Gobert has obviously been one of the top defensive big men in the league, so I think it might work well for the team. As far as because Cat is more of like a stretch big anyway. He's not really a player that really posts up, and plays on the block. So I think that definitely is beneficial for him. Then on top of that, you still got Anthony Edwards, who is the franchise guy for the team, in my opinion. I'm surprised D'Lo has not been a part of any goddamn deals, but Minnesota will still be a solid team.
They just don't want the contract, man. D'Lo makes $30 million a year, man.
Wild. Absolutely wild. But Minnesota will still be a solid team, in my opinion. Regardless of my feelings on Gobert, I have to give credit where it's due. I feel like, the combination in the front court of Cat and Gobert, we'll just have to see how that experiment turns out.
Listen, it's a lot. Let's start from Utah's perspective. Danny Ainge, who we've given a lot of hate to over the years, got every single thing he could have asked for Rudy Gobert. 3 unprotected first-round picks, 1 protected first-round pick, this year's first-round pick, and Walker Kessler, who honestly figures to be like a super Diet Coke version of Rudy Gobert. You can slot him into your starting lineup if you want to go young right away. Malik Beasley, solid 3-and-D player. Patrick Beverley, you guys know who Pat Bev is. And Jared Vanderbilt, who's one of the best defensive wings in this game. He's just got no offensive game. That's why it's hard to get him minutes. For Rudy Gobert, you can flip those picks for someone else. You can trade Don and get another package to start from scratch. Rumor is they have interest in DeAndre Ayton, and they might be part of a KD trade to get Ayton part of a Phoenix 3, 4, 5 team trade. We're going to talk about that in a second. It's a lot. But you are able to now do almost whatever you want to fill your roster around Donovan Mitchell. The type of point guard he wants to play with, the type of center he wants to play with, the type of wings you want, you can probably get with the resources you just got from Rudy Gobert. Smash run hit trade for Danny Ainge, in my opinion. Another new front office, a new ownership in Minnesota, trading with the new front office in Danny Ainge in Utah, is the Tim Connolly run Minnesota Timberwolves. And they identified Rudy Gobert. The rumor is, and I believe they've confirmed this, they prefer to include more picks than trade Jaden McDaniels. And in my opinion, Jaden McDaniels, who's a tall wing with a three-point shot developing and a tenacious defender, is worth adding 2 picks to that trade. Like if they added 2 picks because they couldn't include Jaden McDaniels in the trade, I would do that too. So maybe it looks less erroneous if they include McDaniels and it's less picks. A starting lineup of D'Lo and McDaniels, Cat, Rudy Gobert, with Kyle Anderson still off the bench, Jordan McLaughlin still off the bench, Naz Reid still off the bench. They signed Bryn Forbes to a minimum contract. They got some more shooting in there. Man, I see the fucking vision because Chris Finch isn't a chump. He's no chump coach. Like Chris Finch,
without question, no.
I don't think they're going to be like, all right, let's do what we were doing last year, but add Rudy Gobert to it. I'm envisioning and maybe hoping for sweeping changes. I'm envisioning a defensive scheme entirely revolved around Rudy Gobert and the pieces that they have around him. Offensively, you might keep things a little bit, but I'm envisioning an entirely different defensive scheme for them, where Karl Anthony Towns gets to be this roaming defender instead of having to guard men one-on-one, kind of like D'Lo was doing, and Rudy Gobert is the anchor of the defense. You've got POA defense like Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. I really, really see the vision, and I see the path for a top 4 seed, home court advantage for the Minnesota Timberwolves going into this next season. I'm in. I'm all the way in, baby. Maybe I'm optimistic because I feel bad for Minnesota, but I want to see Cat and Rudy Gobert so bad, and I've been using it on 2K the past couple of days. It's pretty fun.
Like I mentioned before, I think it kind of works out well, honestly, because like I mentioned before, Cat is more of a stretch big anyway, so he's going to want to, be on the outside looking in, whereas, obviously Gobert is, is a rim protector. He's not really that fluid offensively. So
Right.
I really think that it can work out. I don't know what Minnesota's ceiling is. I don't know if anybody want to put them as like top 5 in the West or even top 6, 7, but I think, like you mentioned before, Chris Finch is a really good coach. Having you still have Anthony Edwards. Hopefully D'Lo can come out and have a better year, honestly, but Minnesota's going to be around. They're going to be lurking around.
Karl Anthony Towns is the best shooting big man in the game today. Not ever, like some people say, but today I believe he's the best shooting big man. Anthony Edwards is one of the brightest young stars in the league, and the Minnesota front office, even if we don't, and I kind of do, believes that he is going to be a genuine star, like a fucking third-team All-NBA basement type of dude that is going to be in this league for a long time, doing great shit for a long time. And then they decide maybe those guys can be the number 2 option, the number 1 and number 2 options on a championship team if you bring in someone that can cover up the other end of the team. So they pay a superstar haul for a 3-time defensive player of the year. The best defensive center in the league, not the best defensive big in the league, I still believe that's Giannis, but the best defensive center in the league to put around your guys. I really, really see the vision, man, and it's the most offensive talent that Gobert has ever been around as well. So I think that's going to benefit his game as well. I am optimistic. Hate on Gobert all you want. And Dre, I knew we were going to get you one way or another. You can hate on Gobert's fit in Minnesota because you don't like Gobert, but you can't hate on Utah for getting an awesome package for him and possibly like if you said
I don't hate the fit in Minnesota. I don't hate it.
Good. I know Rudy's got this weird reputation, man, but I like it. And Utah, like, if you want to build around Donnie, this is how you do it. The rumor is they're after DeAndre Ayton. Now, what I've seen is that Donnie might get rerouted to. We're going to talk about. Okay, let's just do this right now. Fuck it. That's Utah. Those are the moves they've done. And Minnesota. I still think Kyle Anderson's one of the best free agency signings this period. Okay, I'm going to mark it right here, right now. Ooh, basically 120. I love it. I'm just going to put 120 here because if you tune in on this, Kevin Durant has asked for a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. He is very likely to be traded, although there is a chance. I think there's more of a chance that people want to admit that he's not going to. His preferred destinations are the Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat. There are a litany of reasons of why a ton of the young talent in the league is not available for the Brooklyn Nets. Per CBA rules, you cannot trade for 2 players on maximum rookie extensions. And last year, in case you forgot, at the trade deadline, they sent James Harden down for Ben Simmons, who is on a max rookie extension. So that eliminates guys like Bam Adebayo, who's the main component of a Miami trade that would be needed. You can't send him. You can't send guys over like Zion or Brandon Ingram, I believe, unless they trade Ben Simmons to a third team. Because of this, very many people expect this to be a minimum of a 3-team trade. And from what I've seen on Twitter, from the little whispers out there on NBA Twitter, there is a 5-team trade in the works. And there could be more if Ben Simmons is on the move. Kyrie to the Lakers looks like it's predetermined destiny. Whether Russ goes back to the Brooklyn Nets or goes to a third team like Indiana is yet to be seen. But all we know is the trade that we just talked about, the Rudy Gobert trade, set the precedent for what the KD trade will be, which is much, much more. Rudy Gobert got 1, 2, 3 straight up rotation level players, a first round pick this year in Walker Kessler, 1, 2, 3 first round picks, and a protected first round pick. That's 5 first round picks and a swap, and 3 rotation level players. Kevin Durant is going to get all-stars and picks in this trade for the Brooklyn Nets if they do trade him. It's going to be a fucking mess.
The drama has began.
It has. Dre, tell me about what you're thinking in this trade right now. Do you see a vision? Do you think the trade's going to happen?
A trade for Kevin Durant is definitely going to happen, in my opinion. Brooklyn's a cooked product. They're cooked. I mean, there's really no other way around it, honestly. And it sucks too because, obviously after they got swept by the Celtics, rumors came around that Kevin Durant was not in contact with Sean Marks or anybody else in the Brooklyn organization for about several weeks. So obviously there's a little bit of I don't know if there's any friction, but there's definitely no communication on both sides. Honestly, I would love that combination of Phoenix, and I want to say that Brooklyn's giving them 4 offers, but Phoenix is just not going, Brooklyn is just not going for, or I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. I think Phoenix is giving them offers, but Brooklyn says no. Probably because I'm assuming that Brooklyn was Devin Booker, which the Suns just signed him to an extension, and that is really their franchise player. I know people may say that CP is the better player for the team, but obviously Booker is the number 1 option offensively, and that's been their guy since he was a rookie. So I doubt that Booker would be a part of any Kevin Durant trade whatsoever. So can that trade possibly still come around? I'm not sure. I know that we saw Indiana as well. I don't think Indiana is even a right destination in my opinion, even though a combination of Tyrese Halliburton and Kevin Durant could possibly be a really good duo. But Indiana's more in a position to rebuild. I don't think that they should really go for Kevin Durant, honestly. I know Toronto was also up there as well. Scotty Barnes being a part of that trade as well, and for this team as well, because, well, let me just say it anyway. It's the Warriors, and I'm a Warriors fan. I appreciate Kevin Durant for those 2 championships in those 3 years, and I definitely appreciate him for coming out in that Game 5. Leaving it all out on the floor, and then ultimately tearing his Achilles. Definitely showing his will to his will to win, and then of course his will to play the game of basketball. Let's go back to 2016. July 4th, which would be 6 years. 6 years from the day tomorrow, where Kevin Durant signs with the Golden State Warriors as a free agent.
Fish.
The whole entire NBA Twitter, the whole entire NBA world was pissed. Even had Stephen A. Smith on TV saying it was the weakest move by a superstar. And just think about what happened before that. The Warriors just blew a 3-1 lead after having a 73-9 regular season, and we ultimately lose in Game 7 to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. So after we lose, we elevate the team and grab KD, and there was still a lot of scrutiny within the move in the organization. Now we're in 2022, and people are saying, "Yo, Kevin Durant to Golden State." Could you imagine the fucking scrutiny that Kevin Durant will possibly go through after they just won the championship? After they just won the fucking title? I don't think people really think, honestly. I really don't, honestly. And I'm just going to be honest, man. I like Andrew Wiggins. I like him. I want him to stay on the team. I know that when the trade went down with him and D'Lo back a few years ago, I was kind of questioning it. I was like, can Wiggins really be that guy for us? I like it. Keep Wiggins. Keep everybody. We are a great team. We are going to, I'm not going to predict that we're going to win a championship next year, but we're definitely going to be back in contention next year. We're good. You know what I'm saying? And look, KD definitely elevates this team, but it's not necessarily something that we need. I think back in 2016, it was something that we needed. Now in 2022, it's not something that we need, honestly. And that's just my whole opinion on it. I don't think the Kevin Durant to Golden State is going to happen. I don't even think that he should even look at that as a destination, in my opinion.
I wouldn't expect the Warriors to make this move. It would take Wiggins for the money to work, but it would take at least Poole, at least Wiseman, and at least one of Kuminga, Moody, or both. And that's just that. That's before getting into the draft picks, and that's a lot for the Warriors to do for Kevin Durant right now. I think they're happy with their homegrown thing. What I'm seeing from tweets, these could be trolls, is that the 5-team trade, there's a 5-team trade in works right now with the Lakers, Brooklyn, Jazz, Pacers, and Suns. From what I can figure out, the Lakers would receive Kyrie in this deal. The Suns would receive KD in this deal. The Jazz would receive DeAndre Ayton in this deal. And Brooklyn would receive, what I can't figure out is if Brooklyn receives Donovan Mitchell, they can't have Ben Simmons on the roster. And if they need to trade Ben Simmons, the Pacers make sense for a location for Ben Simmons, a young wing. I think they can work with him, but someone also needs to take Russ's contract in this, and the Pacers are also being rumored for that. They're not going to take both. So, is Brooklyn just getting a shitload of picks in this deal? Is there another team? Is Chris Duarte in this deal? Obviously, I believe it's going to be Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. With the offer over to KD to Brooklyn, but I'm not entirely sure what happens because I think based on what the reporting we're seeing, I could see Donovan Mitchell being the target for Brooklyn, being like, that's the guy we want in return in a KD trade. We need to figure that out. But if they do that, they can't have Ben Simmons. So we need to figure out what's going to happen there. But Ben Simmons has deleted his Instagram. Very solid chance he's getting traded. The Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook rumors popped up as late as last night when they were saying that the Lakers, the holdup right now was they don't want Joe Harris in a deal. They want Seth Curry in a deal instead, but maybe a third team takes Joe Harris in this deal instead. Phoenix is signing minimum guys to fill out the roster like they know they're about to need to fill in the margins on a team gutted by a superstar trade. We've got inklings of a deal everywhere, in every direction that you look. If I had to guess, tomorrow's July 4th. Big shit happens on July 4th, baby. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, maybe it doesn't happen at all. Dre, what is your prediction for this situation?
For Kevin Durant?
Yes.
I hope that Phoenix can figure out, or I hope that the Nets of Phoenix can figure out a deal, honestly, because I feel like if Phoenix is able to keep Devin Booker, who they just gave an extension to, and then pair that alongside a guy like KD, and then let's say, for instance, you send Ayton to Brooklyn.
The rumors are that Brooklyn does not have interest in Ayton. He is not a player they are interested in. He is not someone they would consider valuable in a return for a KD trade. It's going to have to be both Mikal and Cam Johnson and all of their picks. I believe maybe there's a chance that they get to keep Cam or Mikal. I just personally don't see it.
So that's the thing that gets hard because it's honestly crazy to me, but I think that Phoenix would be the best destination in this whole scenario. If you compare the two, Chris Paul and Devin Booker alongside Kevin Durant, I feel like this team can really, come back next season and elevate as a top contender in the West. Will it happen?
Yeah.
This is all hypothetical speaking. I'm not sure, but if they can figure out a deal, because I want to say Brooklyn has already put four deals on the table, so it's practically up in the air at this point.
We're going to see, man. My prediction would be that KD ends up in Phoenix. Both Mikal and Cam Johnson end up in Brooklyn. I would guess that Kyrie ends up in Los Angeles. My prediction would be that. And I'm going to guess that an all-star caliber player returns to the Brooklyn Nets, whether it's Donovan Mitchell, whether it's another random guy that we haven't thought of yet, I don't know. But I think it's going to get interesting. And maybe it'll break tonight, man. Maybe if you're listening to this, maybe it's too late. Maybe it's already happened. Maybe it's already confirmed that it's not going to happen, and they're just going to try it out in Brooklyn with Royce O'Neal, who they just traded for, and the newly re-signed Nick Claxton, by the way. Nick Claxton signs a 2-year, $20 million contract, and Patty Mills re-signs for 2 years as well. The Nets can't afford to tank. This would be awesome for them if they had their pick this year, because they could just trade KD for a shitload of picks and trade Kyrie for a shitload of picks and just try and tank for Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson this year. But they can't. Houston owns all of their picks from the James Harden trade, who, by the way, won when he forced himself out of Brooklyn. Now, who the fuck knows what's going to happen there? But Harden is on a contender in Philly with James Harden or Joel Embiid. He won, by the way, but they don't have any other picks. So they can't tank this year. They still need to try to make the playoffs. So they got Royce O'Neal. They've still got Patty Mills. They still got Nick Claxton. They still got Joe Harris and Seth Curry. They got to bring in some all-star caliber guys, and they can still make the playoffs. You add Donovan Mitchell to that. That's pretty good. You add Brandon Ingram, who's my favorite target, but I think you need to move Ben Simmons in that deal. I
Mm-hmm.
think if it's me, if you guys are asking me what my preferred destination would be New Orleans. If you can figure it out, send KD to New Orleans for Brandon Ingram, Dyson Daniels, who you just drafted, Trey Murphy, who I like, Jose Alvarado, all of the Lakers picks you still own from the Davis trade, all of the Milwaukee picks that you still own from the Drew Holiday trade, a couple of your own picks, and then I mean that's a crazy haul for Brooklyn for KD. And then your starting lineup is still CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Kevin Durant, Zion Williamson, and Jonas Valanciunas, and you still have guys like Larry Nance Jr. off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
You can win a title with that. You can win a title with CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Kevin Durant, Zion Williamson, by the way, and Jonas
A
Valanciunas.
healthy Zion.
Yeah, sure, but he doesn't have to do as much anymore if you've got
That's
KD.
true.
And I think KD and McCollum probably got respect for each other. There's a score to take off the load. Valanciunas is a big man. You can go small with Jackson Hayes, who, by the way, didn't get traded in the scenario I just said. You still have a shitload of young dudes on that roster, like Jose Alvarado. You still got Grand Theft Alvarado on there. Unless I traded him, it doesn't really matter. But I think that's an easy trade to do. If they're interested, I don't know. If KD would accept that, I don't know. But that would be my favorite package. I'd love to start a team with that package. Brandon Ingram alone, but also Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels. Surround those dudes with some other guys. I like that a lot. That's going to wrap us up here. Hopefully, honestly, I would prefer that this KD trade shit drops before we release, just because I want it to happen.
Midnight, please.
I want to talk about it. But if not, you're listening to this on Monday morning. Happy 4th of July. If you celebrate imperialism, good for you. If you don't, enjoy the day off, baby. If you have the day off, enjoy it. But something's going to happen, man. And if it happens tomorrow after the episode, hopefully we were right. If not, I hope you're enjoying all the content that comes out after it. We'll see you next week, where we maybe bring on a guest to talk about a specific team. We'll talk about Pat or so, try and get Pat on or something like that. But
Pat, if you're listening, I'm trying to get a hold of you, man. Pat, see, the thing about Pat is so famous now. You can't get a hold of this guy nowadays, man.
Yeah.
But Pat, if you're listening, me and Agua know that you're a big fan of the show. We've already had you on before. Come on again, man. We got to talk Hawks. We definitely got to talk this DeJounte Murray, Trae Young backcourt. We got to talk about the future of John Collins. We got to talk, man. We got to talk.
This new Hawks roster is very fun. We'll try and get specific members of teams that cover teams to talk over a specific team for every episode. Or next week we'll just be talking about the KD trade or another trade that happens. John Collins is still happening. Kyrie, Russell Westbrook might still happen.
Yep.
Guys, we'll catch you next week or a week after that. Who knows what our schedules are going to be. Dre, thanks for coming as always. At Nick Andre
Yes,
ATR.
sir.
Follow us at Hoop Truther Studios YouTube channel. Check it all out. Subscribe. I'm running out of words to say. See you next week. Happy 4th of July. Deuces.
Deuces.